Ladies, gentlemen, and none of the above. Today I'm gonna do a Megaminx project. It's been a really long time since I did anything really. I was working on another really big project and I had to put that one on hold because it's a little more complicated than I first thought, and I need to do some smaller experiments to figure out how to get that to work. I'm really excited to do these bigger modifications and you guys are gonna love them, but I just can't go 3-4 months between builds. And so I've got a really cool idea for a Megamoid variant that I want to do today. Now, when I did the original Megamoids, there was the first one, which was just the top and bottom faces being fused, and then there was the second variant, which was 3 faces being fused. However, I wanted to try not fusing those faces together, very similarly to how I did my Giga Rocket. Also, have a look at this. I was going through some of my drawers and I found this. It's one of my inverted house cubes. This is really one of my favorite modifications to do on the 3x3. If you haven't seen the videos for this, go and check them out. I'll leave a link in the description and of course the obligatory card in the top right. Now, at the risk of blabbering on until the sunset, the modification that I want to do today is a baby face Megamoid. You take a face and then you cut it down to pretty much just above the cut line, which is the separation between one layer and another, and then you leave it like that. And I want to do 1, 2, 3 of them all the way around the Megamoid. And what they will do is remain functional, but it'll take their form away from the shape of the puzzle. To save my life later on, I'm gonna take 3 of these layers out, and then I'm gonna rotate the corners so that they're all with the cap on the inside facing the layer beneath them, and I'm gonna super glue them in place. And the reason I'm doing that is just so that when I make the cuts along this face, they're all uniform all the way around. And that's something that you should also do as well. I don't normally do that, and I always forget to, and it's only after I make the cuts that I remember. I've done that like 30 times now. I really should learn from my mistakes. Looks like I made an oopsie. I had cut down to what I thought would be an acceptable depth, although it turned out that what remained of the corners couldn't support themselves, and since I was going to sand down even further than this afterwards, I went back and I started cutting the rest of the faces off, and I decided it wasn't really much of a loss to lose these pieces anyway, since I would still be able to make a functional puzzle. Well, I guess there's no such thing as mistakes, they're design alterations. I'm gonna abandon the idea of having the face be completely pentagonal, and I'm gonna sink it into the surface. I think this might actually end up looking better. But nothing's gonna distract me from the fact that I just spent the last 20 minutes gluing these caps on only to break them off. Such is life. Alright, so after that little design alteration, you can see here that I've got the 3 faces where I want them to be now. One little step that I did miss is I had to reduce the screw head diameter so I could sink it down a little deeper into the puzzle. But you can see now that I've completely removed one of the layers. Well, I've removed 3 of the layers, and you can see how that really changes the shape.
Most of the pieces are exposed enough that I could probably fill them with the puzzle assembled, but I decided to take it apart anyway so I could get access to the centers and fill those as well. And once I had everything apart, you can really see just how far down I've taken all three of these faces.
This is going to be the hardest thing to keep in focus. Look at the size of these centerpieces. This is why I can't sand much lower than this. Luckily, I don't want to.
I got out the epoxy sculpt and I mixed up enough to fill all of the pieces. There weren't that many pieces to fill, and so I didn't need to mix up that much. However, because at least one side of all of the centerpieces were showing, I had to fill all the cavities in each of those pieces. That's my least favorite part of a Megaminx to fill.
Okay, I was bad. It got a little late last night. I kind of got a little ahead of myself and I completed some stuff off camera. I've just rounded over all of the centerpieces and some of the edge pieces in these little dials here, and it didn't really take a whole long time to do, and I've reassembled everything, and I've just finished sanding down the surface to make each one of these three surfaces as flat as it needs to be in order to continue on with this build. So for now, it's about time to round over all of the pieces and finish this modification up, but there's one last little step, which is there are these little gaps in between all of the centerpieces, one for every corner on each of the centerpieces, and I need to get rid of those. But I can't do that until everything is reassembled and all the pieces are back in their place. So let's do that now.
And the regular viewers of the channel will recognize my usual finishing technique of a nail file, a sanding block, and some Scotch-Brite, which I use to round over all the edges on each of the pieces. I have to say that even though this isn't a very complex modification, it was an unexpected learning experience. When I first cut down too far on those layers, I thought I'd ruined the puzzle, but after I realized that you could sink the layer down to the cut line, it really opens up a lot of new possibilities for modifications that I can try with the Shengshou Megaminx. After I'd finished rounding over all of the pieces and reassembling everything, I gave the puzzle a color scheme that I felt best showed off the dials on the three faces by stickering them up with alternate colors to the surrounding pieces. Everything else I just put a chaos color scheme on, and I tried to blend it to those colors as best as I could, but it's not perfect. I mean, it's not called chaos for nothing, so I'm pretty happy with how it turned out.
As far as the actual functionality is concerned, it's pretty much no different to a regular Megaminx. You can still turn all of the faces just the same because there is no bandaging, but what I have noticed is some of the pieces do slide over top and underneath one another, and if the puzzle was too tight, that might end up scraping some of the stickers off, and you don't want that. So I'm going to give it a scramble up here, just so I can see what it looks like when it's scrambled, because this is a Megaminx and it's an unbandaged one at that, so I should be able to solve it. Ta-da! Oh wow, that looks pretty cool.
Seeing this puzzle all scrambled up was pretty intimidating, and despite the fact that it's a fairly simple modification, the amount of shapeshifting you get out of it is pretty insane. Although I have to be honest, I wasn't able to solve it. Even though I can solve an unbandaged Megaminx, there was just some form of parity that I encountered at the end that I wasn't equipped to handle, and so I had to resort to the Oscar Van Deventer patented screwdriver method to get everything back.
A lot of screwing.
But despite that, this is actually a really simple modification that I encourage anyone who hasn't done a Megaminx mod before to try. Although that being said, I have some really great more complex Megaminx modifications that I'm going to be bringing out over the next few weeks. I have a load of Megaminxes here, and I've just been trying some new and crazy designs. Not all of them are going to be build videos though. I will walk you through some of the modifications, although some of them I started off camera and I've kind of made too much progress to really start a build video now. But I'm still going to show them on the channel anyway, because Megaminx mods are really cool, and I can't wait to show you guys what I've come up with. But anyways, I hope you guys like this puzzle, and I hope you guys like this video. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see y'all next time.
Okay, out of focus. Make it be in focus.